Okay, the final component of the presentation for your consideration is the takeaway handout. Now previously in this project I had called this just the handout for the presentation, but then when I was discussing some of the elements of this project with a friend of mine who works in a corporate environment, he gave me a different name. He was saying, oh yeah, it's a takeaway. I said, what? What's that? Well, he gives pitches and presentations to prospective clients. He custom designs software. So he refers to it as a takeaway. That means it's something that they will take away from the presentation. And I thought about that, and it's obviously just jargon for him, and it's a fairly easy term, but it totally describes what I'm looking for with this handout. So I'm now calling it the takeaway handout, and that term should help you understand exactly what I'm looking for with it. So let's talk about its purpose. You have two purposes for the takeaway handout. And if you're achieving those two, then you are doing just fine. They can be a little bit difficult, but you should be able to achieve competence without so much of a problem. First of all, you want to remind the audience about the main ideas of your presentation after it has ended. So help them tomorrow remember what happened in your presentation. If they're sitting there thinking, man, I really remember liking Nora's presentation, and I remember it had something to do with Afghanistan. It seemed like an intriguing book, but I can't remember the title. And I'd really like to look that up. And I could, you know, ask Nora. I could text her Facebook or smoke signals, whatever you kids do these days. But actually, she gave me this really attractive handout that I remember. I have in my binder. I'll take a look at that, and that will help me remember. So that's one purpose of the takeaway, is just to help you remember what the novel is, what was discussed in the presentation, just a little reminder. I'm going to emphasize that word little. So it's just a little reminder about what's going on. Connor?
Can we motivate people to hold on to our handout by putting the coloring book page in the back?
Yes, you could. And that actually goes into a little bit indirectly about what we're talking about with the second purpose. And the second purpose is to entice the reader, to make them do something about your ideas. Make them think about your ideas possibly, or in this case, with this presentation, to help them choose to read your book. Imagine that your takeaway handout is an encouragement for somebody to pick up your book and read it. And by the way, that's some of you are going to say, well, yeah, I'm going to read, what, 15 different books? No. But you might pick up one of the books that a student has presented and read it. That has happened through this project quite often. I have picked up books that students have presented, and other students have picked up books that students have presented, and the takeaway handout is one of the ways in which you encourage somebody to do that. Now, a takeaway with a different kind of presentation might have a different sort of enticement. So my example previously, if you were making a pitch for a client, well, then the enticement would include the attributes of your presentation that make you an attractive service provider for some reason. Give contact information, would help them act on what you've just presented. But in this case, it's an enticement to read a book. So you want to remind them of what's going on, and you want to entice them to carry that presentation out with them into their lives. It's not going to happen all the time. And you shouldn't be upset if they don't do anything with your presentation ideas. In fact, if you present to 30 different people, and one of them picks up your presentation ideas and does something with those, that's great. You should count yourself successful. You are not looking to entice everybody in this room to read your book. But if one person in this room comes up to you sometime later and said, you know what, I picked up your book, and I read it, and I agree, that was pretty awesome, then that's a pretty huge connection that you've made with a fellow student. This is my example. It's really simple. In fact, the example that I have created, posted in front of you, didn't take me all that long. And I would consider this an example of competence. In other words, this would score a 6 out of 6, but I wouldn't consider this to be exceptional at all. I've seen some exceptional takeaways. Relatively rarely. Most of the time I see what I've demonstrated for you, which is competence. But I've seen some which kind of blow me away, tri-folded brochure kind of things, where people put hours upon hours into it. You don't need to. If you want to, that's great. But this is an example of competence. So let's take a look at some of the attributes that I like. And if you have your presentation assignment, you might also want to be cross-referencing the rubric criteria. There's a 6-point rubric criterion on the presentation assignment. First of all, it's got a clear heading. So you know exactly what the novel is and the title. In terms of its heading, what do you not see on this takeaway? What, John? Yeah, my name is not on this takeaway. Why? Because the presentation is not about me. It's by me, but not about me. It's about the novel. And this is one of the rare documents that you can actually turn into me as an assignment without your name on it. So that would be fine. Secondly, it has attractive images. As somebody in second period this morning was laughing, saying, well, I don't find him all that attractive. You don't have to find Gregory Peck hot in order to understand that that's an attractive image. That means it's crisp, it's clear, it's well resolved, I can see it easily. Not pixelated. And for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, but students seem to have no problem with pixelated images on handouts. They're pretty attentive to it in presentations. I don't see all that much pixelization. Which one's proper? Pixelation? What do we like better? Pixelation? Okay. Yeah, but then I'm going to stutter it. Pixelization. Pixelation. Students seem much more tolerant of pixelation in handouts than they do in presentations. Presentations, they notice it, they get rid of it. Handouts, they allow it to happen. I'm not quite sure why. But keep in mind that I will grade your handout based upon the clarity of the images, so make sure that they're attractive. Enticements. One of the problems that you might run into that I'll hit you on is summarizing your entire presentation, giving an outline, key points, basically giving a handout that is nothing more than your assignment condensed, your presentation assignment. That's not what you want. Think about this as marketing. Think about it more like advertising. It's less like an essay and more like the jacket of your book. In fact, I like the book jacket as a model. So think about the jacket of your book and how that's written and how it combines with images possibly. Think about the jackets of DVDs. That's another good example. How are those written? They entice somebody to want to watch the movie. And they usually throw some images on there which entice them as well. And the written copy kind of says, hey, come on in, watch this movie, it's entertaining and you will be entertained. So let's take a look at my copy. Reading from top to, by the way, copy means in marketing, advertising terminology, the words. That's what copywriter comes from, in case you've never known what that job means. A copywriter writes copy. They write advertising language. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens, don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. They should remember, hey, that was in the presentation. I remember that was the quotation that he read from the board. Read it. To meet one of the most beloved and inspiring heroes of in all of literature, Atticus Finch. To view the troubles of racism through the innocent, pure eyes of a child. To experience one of the most gripping courtroom dramas ever written. And that's it. So there's not much on there. There doesn't need to be much on there. I don't want there to be much on there. I do not want you to overload me with text or summary of your presentation. I don't want it. I'm listening to your presentation. Your audience is listening to your presentation. This serves two purposes. One, to remind them of points of your presentation. And this does. I talked about how cool Atticus Finch was. I talked about how I like this book because of its perspective, and I talked about the courtroom scene. And I used that quotation up there. So, yeah, this reminds, and it entices. And that's what I'm looking for out of this. It's also asymmetrically composed. Asymmetrical balance, of course, you may remember, means that things are not balanced one for one, equal, like our face is symmetrically balanced with an eye on each side and a nose in the middle and a mouth right there in the middle. This is asymmetrical. That means your eye is able to kind of play around the space. Eyes like to play with space. Eyes like to move from here to here, over to here, and then down to here, and over to here, and over to here. Eyes like to move around without a linear approach. And I've talked about that with your portfolio. The templates that you download should be good examples, because the template designers know these principles. So they should be designing according to good composition principles, and you can see that mine is done that way too. Nora? No, you don't. Remember, I only use digital files for word count and to check possible plagiarism issues, and you can't really do that on this. Yeah?
You want us to make it in color?
You are not required to do this in color. However, you may if you wish. Other questions? Yes? Thank you, Sonia. That is the burning question. Yes, you must print the copies. I will not copy them because you need 30 copies. This class has 29 students plus me. I know technically you can remove one for yourself. It's always good to have an extra. So 30 copies is a good number to reach for. I can't copy 30 for 30 people. What was that? 900, right? Look at me doing simple math. Yes?
Could we use the library from the printer, or the printer from the library?
To print 30 copies? That is between you and Mrs. Fullhart. I would not encourage you to do so, nor do I sanction it, especially because I'm recording and posting this on YouTube. So Connor, I'm saying please do not do that. Honestly, seriously, don't do that. Okay, you can photocopy at the library for a small charge, right? 10 cents a copy. Is that how much they still doing that?
You have to realize, for the cost for me to create a set class of handouts, I could probably about go to T-Bell and have a feast. So, what's it more worth to me? I'll probably just rip off my parents.
I have so many responses. I'm not sure where to go. It's like, jeez. Okay. All right. Yeah. Whatever you said. No. Okay. Next question. Yes.
How many pictures would you like on it?
I don't know. No, it doesn't really matter. I could see it's all creativity, and I would hate to say you must have 3 because that stifles creativity. You could design a killer takeaway with 1 picture, I'm sure, in some way. I did one once. It was a different sort of thing, and now I'm recalling. It was a picture of a child, a rather ugly child, and the child was like pointing with an ugly picture look on their face, and I made this brochure handout. It was a joke that I was making for somebody, but it was one big picture of this ugly kid, and then what I did was I cut little pieces of the picture out to draw emphasis to them, like I was enlarging them. So it was one picture with little pieces enlarged, and that was an effective creative use of one picture to make an impact. Yeah, I would. Yeah, there's a rubric criterion for images. Yeah. Yes, you may, but realize that that's pretty bland. But I don't believe I have a rubric criterion for making this very exciting. So it's not like I'll cut points from you for it. But yes, you could use the cover if you wished. Yeah.
Only one side is
You may use double-sided. You are not required to. Up to you. You could fold it if you want to do a fold kind of thing, a trifold or a regular bifold, whatever you'd like. Other questions? Yes, Michael.
What do you mean by address casual reading?
Ah, excellent. Michael's taking a look at, I believe, the first criterion of the rubric, addresses the casual reader. This document does not address the casual reader. MLA format does not say, hey, come on, read me. MLA format says quite the opposite, right? MLA format says you don't want to read me. This is not about pleasure, this is about work. And it's MLA's functional. MLA is not supposed to be attractive. This says, hey, read me. And what is it? How does it say that? Not with the images, but with the restricted amount of text in large font. You could pick this up off a desk and read it really quickly and easily without much work. That's the casual reader. Okay? That means that I don't want excessive amounts of text, and I don't want simply a summary of your presentation. I've seen people give really dense amounts of text on there. By the way, another trick that people have used that you can use, it's a good one, is exactly what book jackets do, and that is include quotations from critics who praise the book. So you can do that if you'd like, but I wouldn't make that your only copy. Yeah, you could take ideas from the jacket, but I'd like this to be your own document produced, so don't just photocopy the jacket and turn it into me. Yeah, Sydney.
Oh, so you use the, like, the one was the one that you guys, like, you wrote these?
Yeah, I wrote these.
Oh, I thought they were.
No, I am the genius behind this one. Actually, I think it's kind of silly, but I think this handout's a little bit cheesy. I kind of took an approach of old movie trailers. Be like, watch Frankenstein, thrill to the danger of the monster, watch the damsel in distress, cringe at Igor, you know, that kind of thing. I remember old movie trailers doing that sort of sensationalistic, rather cheesy appeal, and I kind of channeled that a little bit into what I did here. So, there's me. Other questions? One last bit I think I will show you. This does not require sophisticated software. You can see that I can do this on Word, and I'll show you how that can be done. Sorry, let me. So this is just, see, I think up here, this is just regular text on the page. That is a text box. That is a text box. That's just an image inserted, and you can see that the picture tools come up, so you can manipulate where it goes and if it's fitting over or under text. So this one is really simple. All I've got is text box, text box, text box, text box, some copy on the actual page, including this, and then I put a picture here, picture here, picture here. That's it. Honestly, I don't remember how long it took me to produce this, but if this took me more than an hour, then I really wasted my time. This should have taken me about half an hour at most. Other questions? No? We're good?